What's going on YouTube? Welcome to From the Top Rope with Andrew Crawford. I'm your boy Andrew Crawford. Um so first things first, I'm in the same shirt because it's the same day that I started recording my vlog. So whenever my vlog comes out, just know that I started the vlog today, Thursday, August 1st, and I'm uploading this today on August 1st. But I promise you the shirt during the vlog will be a lot different for the remainder. Um, but anyways, today on the channel I will be talking about His Case for GOAT, a series on the channel that I started doing during COVID in 2020 when I started to try to get my channel bigger. It was just one thing I love to do because for pro wrestling there's so many more people you could argue is the GOAT than in any other sport. Um, in basketball, you could make an argument for the top four to be the number one, the number two, the number three, and the number four. Like, you could argue their order, but I think it boils down to those four, which is Braun, Mike, Kareem, and Shaq. Or Kobe over Shaq, one of the two. But I think you could argue for any of those four to be the greatest to ever do it. But in wrestling, there's like 30, 40, bro. Like, it's a lot of wrestlers that, they have that argument, whether it's their accolades, how iconic they are, even gimmicks, like, put people in the GOAT conversation. Just, if they represented the company during a boom period like the Attitude Era, that's what puts wrestlers in GOAT conversations. And me personally, I'm very excited to get back on this. And same rules and criteria as in 2020. My first four videos will be not personal, but the four wrestlers that I put it on my Mount Rushmore as far as unbiasedly calling them the greatest to ever do it goes. And it's actually two of my favorite rivalries ever, which is Rock, Austin, Edge, Cena. Those are my four GOATs. Those are the four best to ever do it in my humble opinion. And the five criteria are in-ring ability to work on the mic, talk, whether it's to the crowd or your opponent. Entrance plays a huge part in getting me hopped up over a wrestler. So that, gimmick, and accolades. Accolades are the least important, probably, because it's a scripted sport. So if you're a 16-time world champion like John Cena or Ric Flair, it was scripted. You were booked to win, But they do still play a role. So, with that being said, today's career, we will be analyzing and determining whether he belongs on the GOAT debate or not, which I've already said. My first four are my Mount Rushmore, so my first four answers will be yes, they belong in the GOAT debate. Will be my personal favorite, and this is very important to me, the rated R superstar, Edge. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to look at when it comes to Edge is his entrance. Greatest entrance in professional wrestling ever. Because it don't... Specifically from the time he started using Metalingus and doing and like holding his arm straight up in the pyros. That specifically, in my opinion, is the greatest entrance ever. Because even when he was a heel, he was demanding a reaction from the crowd, whether positive or negative. And that is something that wrestlers, when they can do that, it's showing the people in the back and it's showing everyone else, like, look how relevant this guy is. And Edge demanded reaction, and what's even better is even when he was a heel, he was so hard to hate. Like, you were like, man, this guy's so good, but I want to hate him because he's such a jerk. And his entrance is a huge part of what makes him, like, the "you think you know me," and like the Metalingus by Alter Bridge kicks in, and the pyros, the smoke, all of that, like everything in Edge's entrance is so phenomenal, and it was a very, like, you could argue, predecessor to what I believe is the best entrance in wrestling today, Cody Rhodes. Literally, like, that you could mirror them almost, like Edge coming out in the long trench coat and him doing his thing with the pyros going off. Cody, long trench coat, his thing, pyros going off. I just actually put that together. I'm not even gonna lie. But his entrance is a huge part of what makes Edge Edge. So obviously his entrance, 10 out of 10 for me. I genuinely love his entrance. Personally, I think it is, like I said, the best of all time. Cody's is gaining a lot of traction. Like, the longer Cody's career goes, the more traction it gains on Edge, but right now I'm comfortably saying Edge is still in the lead by a comfortable margin. But with that said, let's move on to the next piece of criteria that I mentioned, which will be gimmick. He's had a few different gimmicks. At first, he had vampire type dude in the Brood. Then he had one of the goofy guys in a tag team. But man, he was good in the ring. Then he had the Rated R Superstar, which is his gimmick, which is his big, defining, this is what makes Edge. Like, that's the Edge that people know. Even people that prefer the Attitude Era know Edge, Rated R Superstar, Ultimate Opportunist, those two nicknames that were really solidified throughout 2005 and 6 and just kind of became what he was. Honestly, the Brood was a fun gimmick, bro. The fire, the entrance of the Brood was something to behold. Like, Edge has always had such dope entrances. But just the vampire gimmick, it was the Attitude Era. They were trying to be edgy, that the Brood bath, when they'd pour blood from the ceiling and bathe their opponents in it, that it was some weird stuff, but that was part of the gimmick, and it was over, and it was popular. Edge and Christian, wildly popular. The 5-second pose, the goofy costumes, the TLC matches that they had, but that's more of a in-ring perspective that I'll look at in a moment. He was so... Everything Edge and Christian did, it was so funny, and they were just being these jerks. They were heels, but you couldn't help but be like, okay, that was funny. But the main gimmick that I'm discussing, the Ultimate Opportunist, the Rated R Superstar, he would come out and do things that, like, a lot of heels had done, but you genuinely were like, what is this bro doing? Like, Edge had a live sex celebration. No other wrestler can ever or will ever be able to say that again. I don't know, with WWE's moved to Netflix and Netflix's love for kind of risque scenes, maybe, but right now, no one can say they've done that. He was the first to cash in Money in the Bank, and the third, for that matter, and both of them are top 10 cash-ins all time. One of them is number 2, the other one's like I'm gonna say like 7. I've not done a top 10. I'm gonna do that, but anyways, he was just doing these things to really bring those nicknames to life. Mainly for the Rated R Superstar thing, it was the sex celebration, I won't even lie, but the Ultimate Opportunist, he would take, as a heel, your job is to take shortcuts, but Edge took it to a whole new level the way he would take every shortcut he could find. Lita would distract the ref, brass knuckles, low blow, poke to the eyes, the typical heel things that, you saw in wrestling, but you didn't see like 3 of them in one match. Unless it was like Ric Flair. Like, that is what you can compare Edge to. Edge is, in my opinion, the greatest career heel of all time. Like, yeah, he had his face run, but as a heel is where he excelled, and it is where looking back, my admiration for him is there, But anyways, gimmicks, entrance, I think those are the only 2 I've talked about, so now let's get into in-ring ability. I'm going to say something that people don't agree with, but bell to bell, there might be 6 wrestlers better than Edge, if that. Like, in a pure match, just don't worry about entrances, gimmicks, take everything away. Put them in a one-on-one match, bell to bell. There might be 6 wrestlers better than Edge. In my opinion. Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, Ric Flair, Eddie Guerrero. I'm not going to say his name because of what he did in 07, but y'all know who I'm talking about. 5. And honestly, you could argue for Edge to be better than Eddie, so 4. You look at the match resume he has with some of his former opponents, Matt Hardy, their feud in 05. It was mainly street fights, but they were so good. His feud with Cena, literally one of the best feuds in professional wrestling history, and I will die on that hill. The TLC 6 with the Hardys, the Dudleys, him and Christian. They rejuvenated a dying tag division. 6 men in what should have been WWE's most stacked tag division ever, because you look at the other teams that they had, they only needed 3. Put any combination of these teams in the ring, whether it be a 1-on-1, a 2-on-2, 2-on-2-on-2, triple threat, whatever, you were gonna get a barn burner. And that is something that Edge had a major part in, because backstage they would be throwing out ideas and Edge would be like, hey, how about we do this? And they'd be like, are you crazy? But then they'd do it, and it would get a massive reaction. And just his match with Foley at WrestleMania. But those are just like stipulation matches. You look at SummerSlam 06 against Cena. You look at Mania 24 against Undertaker. Criminally underrated WrestleMania main event, because no one I know puts that at the number 1 WrestleMania. Especially anymore, because WrestleMania 40 might go down as the greatest Mania of all time. Let me just be honest. His match with Randy Orton at Backlash 2020 was so much fun. AJ Styles at WrestleMania 38. Great match. Just every match Edge has had, even if I wasn't an Edge fan, when I wasn't an Edge fan, I was like, oh, well, that was pretty good. That was really good. WrestleMania 26 against Chris Jericho is one of my picks for great Mania matches on otherwise not very good Manias. The triple threat with Big Show and Cena. I could keep going, but I shouldn't have to. Just know that in ring, there might be 4 or 5 wrestlers better, bell to bell, than the Rated R Superstar, and in my opinion, the GOAT Edge. But lastly, third, let's talk about accolades. No, let's talk about Mike's skills, and then I'll talk about the accolades. No one does hard-nosed, impassionate promos like Edge. No one does comedy promos unless your name is D-Generation X or The Rock, like Edge. Specifically Edge and Christian, but still. But more often than not, if Edge was talking, it was going to be either a hard fought, impassionate, hard nosed, I've busted my butt to be here and I'm not about to give up now promo. And that was just his 2020 return run specifically. But even back in 06, he cut a promo that I don't remember what all he said. I'm not even going to lie. But I was 6 and I've not watched it in a minute. So, you know what? I'm allowed to forget stuff. But he did like this live commentary of when he slapped John Cena's dad, and it was so funny. And later on in the promo, because it was the same promo, when Jeff Hardy returned, he told Jeff Matt was a no-talented loser just like him. And Edge had an underrated knack for being a jerk and being able to just roast his opponents, At SummerSlam 2011, Christian brought out Edge thinking that Edge was going to be by his side for his match with Randy. And Edge said, I didn't know my best friend would become a whiny, moaning, complaining little B-word. And I lost it. I was an 11-year-old like, get wrecked. I loved it, I love Edge. I think everything he does is so great, but again, even if I wasn't an Edge fan, I'd look at that and be like, oh, well, that was really good, or pretty good. I've never experienced anything involving Edge where I was like, well, that sucked. Never in my life have I done that. But, even unbiasedly, I was like, well, that was really good. Everything I've ever seen Edge do, even if I wasn't a fan of his, has been anywhere from good to amazing. And that's a very wide gap because you got good, you have pretty good, you have really good, you have awesome, you have phenomenal, you have amazing, you have 5-star. There's so much Edge has done that I'm just like, wow. And if you ask me, Edge is like, he's like LeBron. No one's going to truly appreciate him till he's gone. Or his haters won't appreciate him till he's gone. Because, when he was gone and retired until 2020, I was appreciating him. I was like, man, I'll miss him. He was so good. His return at the Rump. But anyways, with everything I've said, there's one less criteria that I mentioned. Accolades. And like I said, accolades do probably play the smallest role, but they are still something you have to mention. Because if you're given a title, a Rumble win, King of the Ring, Money in the Bank, whatever you may win, it's, it's a sign to, you from the people in the back, yeah, you're relevant enough that we want you to be a wrestler. We want you to be a top guy. And Edge has won more total championships than anyone in pro wrestling history. Or WWE history specifically. He is an 11-time world champion. 7 of them were the World Heavyweight Championship. The other 4, the WWE Championship. 5-time Intercontinental Champion. 1 U.S. title. I think he's got a hardcore title. I think 14 tag team titles. Actually, I know it's 14 because he won a few with Christian. He won one with Chris Jericho. Randy Orton. Rey Mysterio. He's got all these accolades. He's the first ever Money in the Bank winner. He's won the briefcase twice. Once was via pinfall. It was a weird situation with Mr. Kennedy. I'm not going to deep dive into that. He's won 2 Royal Rumbles, 2010, 2021. I think the widest gap between Rumble wins ever, if I'm not mistaken. Now I've got to think about that. Yeah, it is. 11 years between Rumble wins. That's crazy. King of the Ring in 2001. The King of the Ring was actually prestigious once upon a time. During the mid-90s, early 2000s, King of the Ring was one of the most prestigious things you could win. It was probably WWE title, Intercontinental title, King of the Ring, Tag title, every other mid-card title they had, because I think they had the European and light heavyweight. But anyways, third most prestigious thing for me, or fourth if you want to count the Rumble. Money in the Bank wasn't around yet. And at a point where WWE was at a boom period during the Attitude Era, coming off what many considered before this year to be the best WrestleMania of all time. When the invasion was happening, when you could have used that to make a star from WCW and make them a credible threat, Vince took the guy that made his debut a few years ago. He had proven how good he was, how much he could do in the ring, what he could do. Vince gave him the King of the Ring. He never got his title shot that he won. I don't forget these things. He was owed a title shot and didn't get it. And yeah, he wouldn't have won it, but he was still owed it and didn't get it. I'm just saying. You know, Edge, overall, I think you could argue is the greatest of all time with no bias towards him. And that's the thing about wrestling. If you have a bias towards your wrestler that has the argument to be the GOAT, you're going to argue that he's the GOAT. But for a wrestler to be able to be argued, you could call him the greatest of all time without having that bias, that is the trick. And there are maybe 6 wrestlers I can think of that you can make that argument for with zero bias towards them. And that's Edge, Ric Flair, John Cena, Rock, Austin, Shawn Michaels. Now me, I'm a biased person. That's why I will die on the hill that Edge is the single greatest wrestler to ever lace up his boots, to ever step in a ring. But I'm not mad when people don't think he's the GOAT. I'm mad when people question, like, dude, Edge? Really? And I've gotten that look from people, and I'm like, yes, really. But anyways, outro. So, in conclusion, let me just say, yes, Edge is, in my opinion, an all-time great in pro wrestling. They belong in the GOAT debate. They belong on that hill of GOATs. But like I said, my first 4 videos will be discussing that. Will have that result, that they belong in the GOAT debate, because it is my Mount Rushmore of the 4, in my opinion, greatest to ever do it. You know, I have this love for Edge as a pro wrestling fan that not many people understand, and that's cool. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion on who the GOAT is. Some people say it's Flair, Austin, Rock, Taker, Triple H. I think it's Edge. I always will. That's just me though. But yes, in my opinion, Edge belongs in the GOAT debate. And that's the video. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell me about it in the comments below. Comment a wrestler you would like to see me build or crumble their argument for being the greatest of all time. Stay tuned for my SummerSlam vlog dropping Sunday. share this with everyone you know. Just get my channel out there because I would really like my YouTube channel to grow. And yeah, that's it. And unlike John Cena, I can see you and I will see you very soon.